Hey folks, Scott here. In this video I'm going to be upgrading the Holzfforma G372xp with a larger motor that I got from them, and I'll be going through the process of how to do it, talk about the advantages of doing that, and hopefully improving the performance of the saw. Now I do want to give credit to Lenny Bender. He builds kit saws, and you can find him on eBay, Lenny Bender. He does a really good job. I've purchased one saw from him. He's given me a lot of great advice about working on saws like this. In addition, MicMac72 on YouTube, gotten some good advice from him as well about how to do this. And so just real briefly, one of the advantages of upgrading to this motor is going to be this saw comes with the stock motor. It's a 50 millimeter, which is about 71 cc's, and the upgrade, I'll be taking it from a 50 to a 52. This is 52 millimeter, and it will be raising the cc's to almost 77 cc's. So we should see an increase in performance of doing that as well. It's relatively cheap to do. This big bore motor kit with the shipping is about just under $25 to get it here to the house. So it's a pretty cheap thing to do. So I'm just going to go through this and take you through the process. Well, we'll have to loosen this clamp to disconnect this intake boot. It's fairly easy to do. Seven millimeter. The outside screws on the muffler were a T25. The inside is a T30. These are T25. Before I take the final bolt out, I'm going to take this rubber grommet off right here carefully. Now we can begin to lift the motor out. Should say the cylinder off. Carefully pulling the boot off. And there you have it. One of the reasons for doing this, hopefully you can see this, if you take a good look, you can see that the stock motor, which is the 50 millimeter, has a raised casting on the top. You can see that the big bore kit is not as high, and as MicMac72 pointed out, the result of that is that this shroud sits right on this, and when the motor gets hot, you can begin to smell the plastic melting underneath here. So you either have to file this down or just upgrade to the big bore kit. The big bore kit is low enough that that problem goes away. So I'm also going to want to remove the compression release. The anti-vibration spring needs to come off as well. That is a T25. Going to be removing the piston by grabbing the clip spring and twisting it, and it should pop right out. Comes out fairly easily. Same on the other side. Pops right out. Lightly tap. There you have it. Instead of using a base gasket, I'm going to be applying 3-bond 1184 liquid gasket maker right there. But before I do that, I want to make sure that I clean the base well, which I'll be scraping off anything left over from the previous gasket that was here. It's just a little bit here and there. Using a razor blade. Q-tips come in handy as well. In fact, I'll be using a Q-tip to apply the 1184 onto the base. I'll also be putting a little bit of isopropyl alcohol across this base to clean off any excess oil. I'll be doing the same to the motor. I'll be applying it here as well. When putting the rings on the piston, make sure that things line up correctly so that these little studs in here will fit between the ring properly. You can see how that needs to be for the lower one there. Hopefully you can see these rings lining up properly. Couple things to note as I install the new piston is first the sleeve bearing here. I'm going to apply a little bit of white lithium grease to it. Probably a good idea to do that anytime that you have the saw apart. Also on the cylinder there's an arrow. The arrow should point forward towards the exhaust port. The pins in the rear point towards the intake boot. This helps to ensure, well, it ensures that these pins where there is a little bit of a gap do not coincide with the ports inside of the cylinder here. So applying the lithium grease. I'm going to insert the circlip into one side of the piston head. It's important to make sure that it's actually in the groove. To help insert this sleeve through the piston, I sometimes will stick this screwdriver through to help guide it and to keep everything lined up properly. I will insert the other clip. You can see it's in there now. In place where it needs to be. I want to inspect it and make sure it is in that groove appropriately. Next we're going to apply the 3-bond. According to the instructions, you put it very thinly. I'm going to put a thin coat here as well as a thin coat here and then mate the two pieces together. It says to wait about a minute wait about a minute after you coat it and then put it together. That's not going to be a problem at all. Okay, now to apply the 3-bond, I like to use a Q-tip to do it. This stuff can get a little bit stringy, so yeah, I kind of got to watch it. You can see there's string going everywhere, but I'll start off with the bottom part of the base. Just lightly start putting it on. Just create a nice thin layer. You don't want to put this on too thick. And make sure there aren't any gaps. I'm going to do the same thing here. Put a thin coat here. I'm sure that there are other ways to do this, but this is how I do it. I only got one hand to work with. I take 2 hacksaw blades. This just helps me to keep things steady. You want to make sure that I have some oil on this so everything slides in easily. Get these lined up where the pins are. Also keeps me from messing up that seal I just placed underneath there. Now I can remove these carefully. These are flexible enough that they come out fairly easily. Alright, as I slide this down, I want to come forward into the boot, the intake boot. Here, there, and now I come straight down. Help guide this boot on. Hopefully you can see that. Kind of lift up on it as the boot comes in. Just want to snug these up real good, going from corner to corner. Okay, I've tightened down these bolts, hold the motor on, the cylinder on. So the rest of this is just going in reverse to the way that we took it apart. I'm not going to film the rest of that. That's kind of redundant. I am putting a dual port muffler on here, which I'll show you the end product of that when I'm finished. If I'm sure I'll get some comments about better ways of doing this, but that's the way I've done it. This is not the first one I've done, and it seems to work okay. So we'll see. If it works, well, I'll keep doing it that way. Feel free to leave a comment and let me know if there's a better way to do this. I'm all ears. And direct me to a video as well. That would be very helpful. Thank you. Okay, everything's been put together. There's the muffler. I had to make a few minor adjustments here for this to fit properly. Nothing major. Anyway, I have the new cylinder piston on the dual ported pipe muffler, and so we're going to give it a try, see if we have any improvements. Since this is a brand new cylinder and piston, I'm going to put a little bit of extra oil in the gas, a cap full go into the gas. Then I'll fill up the tank and we'll be ready to go. This is a recommendation from Donnie Boy 73. I think it's smart. It's a good idea to help break this motor in.